Hey, everybody, and welcome to this edition of the Politically Incorrect Podcast. I am Jim Williams, your host, and we know as we get ready for the midterms and the votes coming up on Tuesday that the state of Florida will have quite a prominent role, as it always does, in what happens nationally. And there's going to be a lot of national focus on Florida because you've got a governor's race and a Senate race that right now, for all intents and purposes, is pretty close to a toss-up any way you look at it. On the governor's side, you've got Andrew Gillum, a Democrat, who could be, if elected, the first black governor of the state of Florida. He is facing Ron DeSantis, who, of course, is a Donald Trump acolyte, and they have been waging a battle royal in the state of Florida, overshadowing a Senate race where former governor, or I should say term-limited governor, Rick Scott is representing the Republican side, and he's taking on incumbent Bill Nelson, who is the Democrat in the race. So usually, the Senate gets the high coverage, but not in this one. I got to tell you, the Gillum-DeSantis battle has been something to behold. The debates have been just, absolutely closer to wrestling than political. I mean, they've been verbal barbs and bashes on each other, and it's just been really a bloody, bloody fight. But it is going to end one way or the other come Tuesday, and I can't think of anybody I'd rather talk to about it. Someone who's on the ground there in the Tampa Bay area with ABC 7. And I'm telling you right now, he's an outstanding political analyst and host of his own show, which you can watch every night at 7 p.m. I should say every weekday night at 7 p.m. on ABC 7. Alan Cohn. Alan, welcome to the podcast. And without question, this the fight in Florida, both the gubernatorial battle as well as the Senate battle, is just off the charts.
Well, number one, it's hard to really make what the polls are telling us because, we've learned from our 2016 experience, polls don't tell the complete picture. Polls did not show Andrew Gillum winning the Democratic nomination. He never led once in any of the polls leading up to the primary in August, and one-handedly. So that should say something. But without a doubt, this governor's race has been the most exciting governor's race in Florida in many years. Gillum, and I've seen him speak. I've gotten to know him. He has an electric personality. Whether or not you agree with his policy or not, he is a gifted speaker. So he really became very popular with not only progressives in Florida, but he is not a progressive by nature or his entire career over the last few years. He was a Hillary Clinton Democrat. That's who he supported in 2016. So he is not a manifestation of the progressive wing of the Democratic Party. And when he won the nomination, he did not lose any Democratic votes. So the Democratic Party has been more energized and excited about his candidacy than they certainly were 4 years ago with Charlie Crist, or 8 years, or the last 16 years.
Right.
And that may well also be a huge benefit to Bill Nelson, who there's been a lot of criticism of Senator Nelson in terms of the energy in his campaign. Rick Scott has been out there not only in his capacity as governor, but he began campaigning for the Senate fairly early and quite visibly, and Senator Nelson was tied up in Washington. But you had a lot of Democrats around Florida who were understandably nervous about when the senator would kick it into high gear. So the conventional wisdom here in Florida is that the biggest beneficiary of the Gillum campaign, although they are two very different types of candidates and Democrats, may well be Senator Nelson if he has any coattails to bring along. And the polling indicates that to be the case. If you believe it, there's a new CNN poll out today showing almost a identical 1-point lead for Gillum and a 1-point lead for Bill Nelson. So that really should say a lot.
Yeah, I've looked at internal polls, which I've been fortunate enough to get from friends at the RNC and the DNC. And the internal polls show, for all intents and purposes, have never moved more than a point one way or the other for Nelson or for Scott on the GOP side. On the Democratic side, pretty much the same. On the Republican governor side, DeSantis on their internal polls has never led. He has always been in that 2 to 3 point range. At the end of the day, cliche though it may be, it really is going to come down to turnout. I truly believe it. Go ahead.
And there's, I mean, go ahead.
No, I was just going to say, I imagine, where Gillum's going to try to make it work for him is try to run up big numbers in South Florida, try to run up big numbers along the I-4 corridor, and try to build a firewall for where he's going to get his votes, which are, DeSantis will get his votes from North Florida and, throughout the state, but more North Florida and the lower West Coast below where you are in Sarasota, down in the Fort Myers, area.
Well, without a doubt, Andrew Gillum is spending a great deal of time on the I-4 corridor that goes from St. Pete, Tampa, all the way to Orlando, and he's opened a lot of campaign offices here. But here is something really important to remember. Rick Scott won his gubernatorial races by around 60,000 votes. I mean, it was that close 8 years ago. It was that close 4 years ago. And at the same time, African-American turnout in Florida since 2008 has decreased, if not, and then plateaued. This time it's different. I mean, the African-American community is energized and they are very proud. And the question becomes, is that worth 60,000 votes throughout the state of Florida? And I would suspect it's true. So that could be very helpful. The other part of it is the big question is, it's going to be the MPAs, the independent voters, really, that decide this election. Both campaigns are, the Republicans are coming home, the Democrats are home, and this election will get down to unaffiliated voters. And from every indication that I have seen is that they are breaking towards the Democrats for a lot of different reasons, most especially the national mood.
One of the things that we look back at the Clinton situation in Florida was that Hillary Clinton was unable to move basically women to her side. I mean, she's okay, but she certainly didn't run up the kind of numbers that she thought she would. And also, for all intents and purposes, the Bernie Sanders vote, which was more the millennial collegiate vote. If we are to believe anything, one of the reasons that Andrew Gillum actually won the primary was he actually did very well with the Bernie Sanders, side of Florida's followers in Florida. And I think that, to me, it would be easier for him to pull the Clinton people over because he already had that. It's more difficult to get the Sanders folks. So if he's got the Sanders folks and got the Clinton folks, that's a good indication that he's got a solid bit of wind at his back.
Right. I mean, he does have the the establishment behind his back at this point, the Hillary supporters, and he has the progressives. But the progressives' growing influence in the Democratic Party, it's a good thing. It's a big tent, but it's not without travails.
Sure.
That a lot of the progressives see things in black and white. Some have even said that if you were a Hillary supporter, by definition, you're a conservative.
Right.
And in a general election campaign, Gillum has campaigned, lobbied all Democrats, and the progressives don't like. The progressives are not too happy that Gillum campaigned with Hillary in South Florida, and they do have growing influence within local Democratic parties and so forth. Hillary did not do well in the general election or well enough in Florida for a lot of different reasons. And, how they ran that campaign really was problematic. I mean, I covered that campaign a lot, and the Trump campaign, to its credit, was very aggressive, campaign like they were behind. I myself interviewed Donald Trump twice in one-on-one interviews. They were even offering up his family on election night, and the Clinton campaign, frankly, was less open, less available. She did, she had these huge rallies throughout Florida, but she did not go into the community. She did not walk the streets, and in many ways, she did not inspire people with, whether they're in urban communities or in the suburbs. And not that Donald Trump did anything other than these large campaign events either, but they were hungry, and you just felt it. The midterm elections are really, it's a different animal here for a number of reasons, including the fact that Ron DeSantis was not the pick of the Republican establishment here in Florida. The Republican establishment wanted Adam Putnam, the Secretary of the Commissioner of Agriculture and Consumer Affairs. It was kind of a foregone conclusion, probably since he first learned how to shave, that he would be a governor of Florida. And so, DeSantis's win in the primary really, you have to credit the president for coming in and endorsing him and coming in and having a huge event in Tampa several weeks before the election. So I don't know too many Republicans in Florida who are not only impressed with Ron DeSantis in terms of his personality, but he has not offered a huge idea of what he wants to do as governor, except for platitudes like keep the economy going, don't change things, let's not elect a socialist, and that kind of thing. And right now, I mean, it remains to be seen, but that line doesn't seem to be working.
What about healthcare? I mean, that's been pretty much of the 42 different candidates running for the House of Representatives. Healthcare has been their number one item on the list. I know that Gillum and his team down there have been pushing it. I know DeSantis has put out what, in essence, is a plan. I don't quite understand how his plan works with pre-existing conditions, given the fact that the state itself is in a lawsuit with Pam Bondi, along with 14 other states, for all intents and purposes, dismantling the ACA and underpinning and cutting away pre-existing conditions.
Well, the DeSantis healthcare plan has really come really very late to the party. And you're right, it's almost, something that they put together at the last minute, and it's not well defined. And the healthcare issue in general has not been as at least in the gubernatorial campaign, has not been as talked about as public education, because the two candidates have, really different views of public education in Florida. Gillum wants to increase corporate taxes, to increase teacher pay to $50,000. DeSantis wants to look for efficiencies to put more money into the classroom and greatly expand the school voucher program. And those are ideas that you can debate and put your arms around. And we've asked a lot of the local, state house and state senate candidates about that. The healthcare, not so much, because one of the ideas that in Florida has never, did not go for Medicaid expansion, and Gillum, is talking about the benefits that could bring to Florida residents, but it is unlikely that the Democrats will win the Florida legislature. There is a chance in the Florida House, but I don't know if you would put your odds on that. So it is less likely for that to happen. So therefore, it's been not talked about as much as the other things. The other thing that you have to keep in mind, as a local political reporter told me, that increasingly, these races come down to personality, and people vote on personality. And again, Gillum has done an excellent job of crafting a persona and a message, and Congressman DeSantis has not, and especially now when the campaign itself has become increasingly testy, that's what voters are seeing mostly. Now, that's not to say that, as I said earlier, Republicans are coming home to DeSantis. This is this is extremely tight. But when you're in, a tight race like this, then really those intangibles really do come to play more than usual.
The Politically Incorrect Podcast will be back right after these messages. Folks, I am not kidding you when I tell you that this is the most important election in generations. Now, y'all know that we've spent the last year introducing you to progressive candidates from Florida and California. Why? Because we need to take back the House in November. Many of those progressive candidates that have joined us right here on the Politically Incorrect Podcast are men and women who are first-time candidates. Some of them have been gay and lesbians. Some have been black. Some have been Hispanic. They are progressive candidates that reflect the diversity of this country. And we have to take back the House. The Trump administration is waging war on women, the LGBTQ community, immigration, race relations, the poor, healthcare, and many other issues that affect our everyday lives. Now, I've been involved in politics for over 40 years. Other than voting, the most important thing you can do as a citizen to affect change is to volunteer. We need your help to return the party of Truman, Kennedy, Clinton, and Obama to take back the United States House of Representatives. Here are the numbers you need to know. Nationwide, there are 84 competitive races to win back the House. We need to flip 23 of them, all right? We're going to push hard to get all 84. But at the very least, we need to get those 23. So what can you do? Well, I'm proud to introduce you to my new sponsor, Swing Left. Now, what's Swing Left? It is a national grassroots organization focused on taking back the House in November's midterm elections. They connect people with things they can do that will have a direct impact on winning a progressive majority in the House and putting a check on the Trump administration and conservatives. This election season, our message is don't just vote this year, volunteer. I've done it through Swing Left, and it's free and easy. So far, nearly 500,000 people have volunteered to take action in the 2018 midterms with Swing Left, including me. When you join Swing Left, go to swingleft.org. That's swingleft.org/my-name-Williams. You'll immediately be connected with other volunteers in your area who are working to win races in nearby swing districts. You will find out where and how you can make a difference and impact the flipping of the House. And you got to start now because it is very important. But look, this is a very simple thing we're asking you to do, but it is a very, very important thing. Each of us has the power to change our country, save our democracy, but only if we do the work to take the House back, okay? Gang, we are getting down to crunch time. Trump and his conservative movement can be stopped before they do any more harm. But we have to get involved, okay? This is a turning point in U.S. history. It is worth our time. It is worth our energy. We need you to help. You can man call centers. You can pass out flyers. You can use your talents to help get candidates from diverse backgrounds that are running to save us from the Trump administration and his conservative cronies that have done so much damage so far. And trust me, folks, they are only in it for themselves. So here's what I need you to do. Go to swingleft.org. That's swingleft.org/Williams. Join me and other volunteers in your area who will be working to win races in nearby swing districts. And do it today. You got to do it today. Again, here's what I want you to do. Go to swingleft.org/Williams. That's swingleft.org/Williams. Join our volunteer army, folks. We want to get the House back in the hands of progressives who will stop the Trump administration and the conservatives from doing any more harm. So I'm asking you, I'm begging you, do it today because we have so very little time to affect the election in November. Thanks so much. Go to swingleft.org. That's swingleft.org/Williams. Do it now. You know, I love books. I really do. And I would love to read books. But man, I know you're just like me. Your schedule is so slammed that getting to read a book is just, it's tough. It's tough to do. Can't read anywhere near what you'd like to. And, you know, some great stuff is passing you by. Well, about 2 weeks ago, I decided to download the Blinkist app on my phone. And ladies and gentlemen, it is a game changer. Last week alone, I was able to read Rocket Man, which is a great story about Apollo 8 written by Robert Kurson. I read Chasing Hillary by Amy Chosak. It's a super book, folks. It's an insider's look into Hillary Clinton's 2016 presidential campaign. I went old school and read a book called The Doomsday Machine, Confessions of a Nuclear War Planner by Daniel Ellsberg. And I also got in Alan Fisher's great book, Valley of Geniuses, about the people of Silicon Valley and how they changed the world. I know what you're saying. You're saying, wait a minute, Williams. You just told me that you didn't have time to read one book in a week and you got through 4? Yeah, I'm telling you why. It's Blinkist. It is the app that will change the way you read or listen to books forever, okay? You can find over 2,500 best-selling nonfiction books distilled in a way that allows you to read or listen to them in just 15 minutes. That's right. Now, over 7 million people are using Blinkist every day to glean the insights they need to become better at everything, okay? It's all there. It's all easy to do. Now, I've read classics like How to Win Friends and Influence People While Eating Breakfast. I listened to the Amazon current bestseller Fire and Fury Inside the Trump White House while I was writing my column about Donald Trump. It's that simple, folks. Blinkist is constantly curating and adding new titles from the best of lists so that you're always getting the most powerful ideas in a mobile format, okay? I'm proud to be one of the 7 million people using Blinkist to expand our mind 15 minutes at a time. So let me show you how we get started. All right, you ready? All right, here's how we go. For a limited time, the folks at Blinkist have a special offer for the audience who listens to this great podcast, the Politically Incorrect Podcast with Jim Williams. All right. All you have to do is go to Blinkist.com/Williams. That's Blinkist.com/my name to get that free trial. That's Blinkist, Blinkist.com/Williams. Blinkist.com. That's Blinkist.com/my last name Williams. And you get 7 free days to check out all of the wonderful titles on Blinkist. Now, I'm going to tell you right now, once you download the app, once you try it, you're not going to want to ever give it up. But should you ever wish to cancel it, again, no hassle. You cancel anytime. It's free to cancel. No problem. But as I said before, go to Blinkist.com, Blinkist.com/my last name Williams. Take the 7-day free trial, and I guarantee you, you're going to love it, and you're going to become a member of the 7 million people, myself included, who are part of the Blinkist family, expanding our minds 15 minutes at a time. Welcome back to this edition of the Politically Incorrect Podcast. Let me ask you, change the subject a little bit here. I was watching your show a few weeks ago when you were talking about President Trump coming to Tampa, and you had a young reporter who you sent out, for your team, ABC7 sent to the rally, and it was a bit rough from the standpoint of watching her do a report with the Trump supporters, back in the back screaming and yelling about fake media and CNN sucks and the usual trope that they've been putting out there. I'd like your opinion on this. I've been doing this now for about 40 years. I can't tell you, this is a scary time for me. I really feel very apprehensive at times about sending reporters to these events and going, look, I'm now saying something I don't think I've ever said before. Be careful when you go out there. I've been to these events. I've interviewed President Trump 4 times. I don't fear him, but I do think that the rhetoric is such that it has made the job that we try to do more difficult. And I've never felt like I'm an enemy of the people.
Yeah, I mean, this is disturbing, and someone is going to get hurt, and it will be a fair question if that happens, who's responsible for it. And the incident that you first referred to was our reporter who was there covering President Trump in Tampa. She's a general assignment reporter doing her job. She's not a political reporter. And when I threw it to her for a live shot, she was basically jumped by 2 thugs yelling obscenities. And to her credit, she maintained her her balance
voice was quite good,
and reported. But it does show the environment that we're living in right now. I have another friend who's a general assignment reporter in Tampa, and he pulled over, went to a gas station to buy a drink, and was accosted inside a gas station, with this fake news. I'll say it, crap. And these crowds are being revved up into a frenzy like this. And the incident I was we were talking about in terms of that live report was the same day that Jim Acosta from CNN was verbally harangued inside the Trump rally inside. And this was going on during the presidential campaign, and I saw this firsthand. A couple months ago, on Friday nights on my broadcast, we bring Republicans and Democrats and journalists together, and we roll the issues around. And this was the day, the week that the news came out that the GDP was up over 4%, and the president, rightfully, boasted about that. And that was the first 10 minutes of my show, talking about the 4% GDP growth. And that night on our Facebook comments, I get, a comment from a guy talking about, why didn't we talk about the 4% GDP growth? This is why you're fake news. And, the following day, I said, I not only pointed out that it was the first thing that we talked about for the first 10 minutes of my broadcast, but, I said basically, stop with this, fake news baloney. It's being perpetuated by somebody who is doing it for their own ends, not yours. And this is why we live in such dangerous times, because people are being told, don't believe law enforcement, don't believe the courts, don't believe the national intelligence community, don't believe the media, believe me. And, this is a very dangerous thing that, people who are smarter than I, talk about, societies that become, going in directions that we don't want to see. We all have our politics, and people should debate, but it's it's becoming increasingly dangerous out there. You mentioned we were talking earlier about the show I did last night in the aftermath of the Pittsburgh massacre, and the point I made was, when the reports of gunfire came out, police rushed to the scene. First responders responded. And they did so not just because it was their job and not just because it was their shift. They did it because that's what we do. When things like this happen, we rush into the action and to save people's lives. We don't ask them if they're Jews or they're Christians or they're Muslims. We don't ask them if they're Republicans or Democrats. The American way of life is that we respond. And the problem is that we're not extending that to the rest of our society and our debate, and we're losing that ability. I could go on here, but one of the things that we're also talking about my love for baseball. One of the things I love the most about baseball or football or whatever is when you're in the stadium rooting for your team, you're sitting with people who are Republicans and Democrats and independents and everything else, and you're rooting for something else, for a common purpose, and that's probably the best thing about sports. And it's hard to sometimes appreciate that when we seem to be being pulled apart because of our political discourse.
Yeah, and frankly, we do our best. I mean, that's all you can do in reporting things. If what we report doesn't fit with the narrative of the White House, that's not my problem. It's not your problem. We are printing and we are broadcasting the facts. If you choose not to believe us, well, fine. There's a channel you can watch, which will always figure out a way to take what the president says and make it sound good. But at the end of the day, Jim Acosta is a friend of mine, and I feel badly for him. He actually has a security detail assigned to him when he's on the road. Katie Tur, who is another friend, literally, and it's in her book, so I'm not saying something out of school here, after covering the Trump campaign, had to go to a psychiatrist because of the trauma she felt. This is not right. This is not our kind of America. You're allowed to. Yeah. I don't know, and maybe Alan, you can tell me. I started my covering of presidents when I moved to D.C. and covered Bill Clinton. I don't think I've ever met a president who's like the press. Okay, no. We never give them enough credit when they do something right, and we always give them too much blame when we take them on in one way or another. So this is not new that the president doesn't like the press. That's not new. What is new is the enemy aspect of it.
Well, and that really, that gets back to this president and his strategy, if that's what it is. But, you brought up Fox, and, Fox, like everything else, is not a monolith. And you have people increasingly at Fox, like Shepard Smith, who are, calling it out.
Right.
What I always tell people is on one hand, Fox was a brilliant idea in terms of a business model. And, you could go back, I don't know how many decades to, I'm thinking of Spiro Agnew with the nathering nabobs of negativism comments, that there was a market for, a news organization or a channel that caters to people who think in that sort of way, and so I'll give them credit. I'll give Fox credit for creating a money making good business model. On the other hand, if your sole source of information is watching the Fox News channel, then I don't think you're a well informed American. You're getting a highly skewed vision of what is happening in the world. And I do watch Fox sometimes, and that's my responsibility to do that. And, there will be people who will say, well, you know what, what's the difference? Fox and CNN is on the left and MSNBC. Well, that's not true. If your perception is that CNN is negative on President Trump, something is not negative because you are saying what the president is tweeting and what is and what he is saying. Right. And the president is doing things that no other president has done in history. And the fact that he is a maverick like that is not a bad thing, but what he is doing is what is drawing the close analysis of his actions. MSNBC, was created to present, to be more of a left or a liberal bent, but NBC News is their correspondents are shoot straight from the hip. They may have liberal leaning hosts. If you're an educated viewer, you could tell the difference between them. But the other thing is, I don't recall people on MSNBC just making stuff up.
No.
I saw a former ICE agent on Fox News the other day say that those people in those caravans coming out from Central America are bringing in leprosy. Right. He has no basis of fact to say that.
No.
I mean, that is just making stuff up. But if you're watching that channel, you're taking that for granted. And that's why we live in that's why this is so perilous for us.
It's it's funny because Shep Smith does an outstanding job at Fox. I've worked with Tucker Carlson. Okay, I can talk to Tucker, and we can talk about baseball. We can talk about a number of different things. I used to work as a columnist at the Washington Examiner, which is about as conservative a newspaper as you can possibly get. I was the token, the token Democrat in the room, but there was a civility of, okay, you've got your opinion, I've got mine, but that civility has, that train has sailed. Those trains don't sail. That train has left the station, and civility is tough at this point in time. It's really tough to find, and I hope that we find a way back to that, because civil discourse is the best way to resolve things, not yelling at each other.
Well, I mean, I'm trying to do it in my own small way in terms of reconsidering, who I have as guests on my show, and there are local Republicans and Democrats who are more prone to bombast and angry arguing, and I'm thinking hard: do I want that on my broadcast 5 nights a week? And will I be? There are plenty of Republicans and Democrats around here who are disagreeable, but realize that when they begin foaming at the mouth and yelling at each other and talking over each other, then the audience really isn't listening anymore. And and I'm thinking about two people in specific, a Democratic woman and a extremely conservative former journalist. But they've agreed to keep it civil on my show, and so I am thinking hard about, do I want the other guests? I mean, I understand ratings. I try to have really informed debate on my show, and I've been rewarded with really good ratings, for that. And so really it's up to it's up to the cable networks, and it's up to business models to think this, and the problem is that there is an ever increasing selection of places where you could go for your information, and there is no common town square anymore. I mean, the days that we had Walter Cronkite and Huntley and Brinkley and Harry Reasoner are long gone, and maybe that's part of the problem, but those days are not going to come back. So it's really kind of up to these big companies and to us as individuals to come up to try to find a way.
Let me give you all a plug at ABC7 there. I'm up in DC, but I can watch your moves. I stream it on Roku. I strongly suggest everybody check out the app. It's a fantastic one. You guys do a heck of a job of giving truly well-presented local news, and you do more of it than any other station in the Tampa Bay area. And it's straight up news, and you start early in the morning, and you go all day long with a great, series of news programming, including yours. So please, I'm going to give you this opportunity to do some plugging for ABC7, because you guys do an outstanding job.
Well, I appreciate that, and the people here work very hard, and there's been really a deliberate decisions to not just cover car accidents and murders and so forth, but to look at things in a serious way, whether it's red tide, which is had a terrible, devastating impact on our beaches and our sea life, to environmental issues and what's happening in our community. And as far as my broadcast, it was a great idea that instead of spending whatever they spend on syndicated programs at 7 o'clock and 7:30, why don't we create a local newscast that we do the news headlines of the day, but then we dig deep into important matters, whether they deal with the city, the county, the region, the state, or the country, and get local voices to opine on national things and talk about how what's happening in Washington is impacting the conversation here at home. And unfortunately, this is pretty rare these days in commercial broadcasting. I mean, how often do you see programs like this in prime time on network affiliates? I feel strongly we should be doing more of this and not less. And I think that when broadcasters make these bold moves, they are rewarded for it. And you got to give people a reason to watch. And look, if there is a cat up the tree, all the TV stations in the market are going to cover it. And what makes you different? What are you doing that the other guys don't have? And I feel really strongly about that. And I'm really happy that this is the approach that they take here.
Well, I think that one of the things that is rewarding about it is that you do get local news, truly local news. And I do have a question for you. I love when you talk about the trapezoid, but what is the trapezoid? Is it the table? What exactly is the trapezoid?
The trapezoid is the table. It's the shape of the table, which was custom built for our broadcast, and our former producer started calling it that, and I started making reference to it on the air, and it's become a thing. And when people see me around town, they talk about the trapezoid. We're even thinking about making up T-shirts and giving it to the best guest of the week or the best viewer comment. But it's a hook. And it's a great way to really kind of get a sense of how what kind of staple we've come in this community by how many people talk about it when we're out and about in town.
I thought it was funny. It was kind of like I was looking up Dana White to find out if the UFC has going to have an upcoming battle at your trapezoid. It was quite entertaining. But no, Alan, I truly appreciate you joining me today. And one more last time, plug your show. When can people watch it? And look, folks, you can watch it. Doesn't matter where you are in the country, in the world. You can check out Alan's show, and I strongly suggest that you do.
I appreciate it, Jim, and we look forward to having you on.
So, well, tell us when it's on, so we'll make sure. I mean, I know it's on.
Oh, sure.
7 and 8 o'clock.
Right. Monday through Friday, 7 to 8 p.m. And we plan our stories out, 3 weeks in advance in terms of what's happening, what's important to this area and this state and the country. But we try to also be reactive to what's happening today. And when there are things like that terrible situation in Pittsburgh or the bombings or the election, we switch gears and we invite people to come in and give their perspective. And it's wonderful that we are able to get everyone from local city commissioners to the president of the United States. And it's very rewarding, and I think it's what I like to say, it's become the town square on the sun coast of Florida, and that's a good place to be.
Many thanks to Alan Cohn from ABC7, Sarasota, Tampa Bay. By all means, catch his show. And as I said, you can stream it no matter where you are in the country or in the world. Just download their app. It's going to be in the show box below. You can link into it and get it. His show airs every weekday night, 7 until 8 p.m. on ABC7, mysuncoast.com. Okay? All right. Thanks again to Alan. And we'll be back with more of the Politically Incorrect podcast after these messages. I love books. I really do. And I would love to read books. But, man, I know You're just like me. Your schedule is so slammed that getting to read a book is it's tough. It's tough to do. Can't read anywhere near what you'd like to. And, some great stuff is passing you by. Well, about 2 weeks ago, I decided to download the Blinkist app on my phone. And ladies and gentlemen, it is a game changer. Last week alone, I was able to read Rocket Man, which is a great story about Apollo 8 written by Robert Kurson. I read Chasing Hillary by Amy Chosak. It's a super book, folks. It's an insider's look into Hillary Clinton's 2016 presidential campaign. I went old school and read a book called The Doomsday Machine, Confessions of a Nuclear War Planner by Daniel Ellsberg. And I also got in Alan Fisher's great book, Valley of Geniuses, about the people of Silicon Valley and how they changed the world. I know what you're saying. You're saying, wait a minute, Williams. You just told me that you didn't have time to read one book in a week and you got through 4? Yeah, I'm telling you why. It's Blinkist. It is the app that will change the way you read or listen to books forever, okay? You can find over 2,500 best-selling nonfiction books distilled in a way that allows you to read or listen to them in just 15 minutes. That's right. Now, over 7 million people are using Blinkist every day to glean the insights they need to become better at everything, okay? It's all there. It's all easy to do. Now, I've read classics like How to Win Friends and Influence People While Eating Breakfast. I listened to the Amazon current bestseller Fire and Fury Inside the Trump White House while I was writing my column about Donald Trump. It's that simple, folks. Blinkist is constantly curating and adding new titles from the best of lists so that you're always getting the most powerful ideas in a mobile format, okay? I'm proud to be one of the 7 million people using Blinkist to expand our minds 15 minutes at a time. So let me show you how we get started, all right? You ready? All right, here's how we go. For a limited time, the folks at Blinkist have a special offer for the audience who listens to this great podcast, the Politically Incorrect Podcast with Jim Williams, all right? All you have to do is go to Blinkist.com/Williams. That's Blinkist.com/my name to get that free trial. That's Blinkist, Blinkist.com/Williams. Blinkist.com, that's Blinkist.com/my last name Williams. And you get 7 free days to check out all of the wonderful titles on Blinkist. Now, I'm going to tell you right now, once you download the app, once you try it, you're not going to want to ever give it up. But should you ever wish to cancel it, again, no hassle. You cancel anytime. It's free to cancel. No problem. But as I said before, go to Blinkist.com, Blinkist.com/my last name Williams. Take the 7-day free trial, and I guarantee you, you're going to love it, and you're going to become a member of the 7 million people, myself included, who are part of the Blinkist family, expanding our minds 15 minutes at a time. Welcome back to this edition of the Politically Incorrect Podcast. Now, if you are not one of the over 50,000 people who have taken the time to download and subscribe to the podcast, first of all, shame on you. Second of all, we certainly make it simple to do. All you have to do is go to the iTunes store. That's right. We are very pleased to be part of the Apple Podcast family. You can check us out at Spreaker, Stitcher, Spotify, YouTube, and pretty much any one of the major podcast apps. All you have to do is search the Politically Incorrect Podcast with Jim Williams. Hit the favorite button or hit the subscribe button. And if you do that, then every week you're going to get a brand new edition of the show sent to your tablet, to your phone, or to both. Okay? So please go out and do that for us. We would greatly appreciate it. And we hope that you will continue to enjoy the podcast. All right? Okay. Once again, special thanks to our buddy from ABC7 on the Sun Coast there. And that, of course, is Alan Cohn. He does an outstanding job analyzing politics in the state of Florida. Super guy, check him out. Our guest, we have another one, and that, of course, is another Alan Steinberg. Alan and I are going to do a special, that's right, looking forward to it, a special preview as we break down from coast to coast what to look for in the primary elections. We're going to do that on election eve. That's a special edition of the show. It's coming out. The podcast will drop Monday morning, okay? So Monday morning, be sure to check it out. Listen to it all day Monday. Take it with you to the polls. And we're going to tell you what's going on. We're going to tell you what races to watch. We're going to tell you what are the key races to watch as to whether or not the Democrats can or will take back the House. If there's an outside chance of, them taking the Senate, where's that going to happen? And basically give you everything you need to know as a guide leading up to these all-important midterms. So by all means, check out that special podcast, which will drop either Sunday night or Monday morning. It'll come directly if you're a subscriber to your cell phone or to your tablet. So keep a lookout for it. Alan Steinberg and I break down the 2018 midterms on the eve of the 2018 midterms. So by all means, join us, okay? All right, thank you all very much for joining us this week on the Politically Incorrect Podcast. I'm Jim Williams for the team here, saying thank you all very much for everything that you do for us. And by all means, get out there and vote, okay? All right, thanks and have a great week.